Boys and girls, today we're going to talk about adaptations. Adaptations are behaviors or appearances that allow the animal to survive better in its habitat. And remember, a habitat is where an animal lives. So today we're going to focus specifically on different types of adaptations that birds have. So I want you to take a second and I want you to think of some adaptations that birds may have that help them better survive in their environment. So I'm going to give you a couple seconds to think. Okay, one of the first adaptations that popped in my mind was their bones. And when I think of their bones, I think that they're much different than ours because they're a lot lighter and they're also very hollow. And when you're thinking of what the word hollow means, think of a straw and you can look in from one end to another and you don't see anything inside of it. And that's very similar to what hollow is. So their bones are very light and hollow, which helps them fly. Another adaptation that I came up with, and I'm sure you did too, was their beaks. And their beaks are all different shapes and all different sizes, but certain beaks are used for certain things, such as tearing up food, catching food, drinking nectar from flowers. All their beaks are designed to help them survive in their habitat. I also thought of another adaptation was their feathers. And when I think of the feathers, I think of an animal that I see a lot around here, and I think of a duck, and I know that the duck has oily feathers that help keep them dry, which is helpful since they spend a lot of time in the water. And then another adaptation I thought of was their eyes. I can think of eagles that have very, very good eyesight and they're able to see their prey from hundreds of feet away, as well as owls who also have very good eyesight and also very good hearing. And lastly, I thought of their feet. Different birds have different types of feet. Some feet are made for swimming, some feet are made for catching food, while others are made for walking in shallow water. Today we're going to look at some of these adaptations a little more closely. The first adaptation we're going to take a look at a little more closely is the bird's feet. And like I said before, not all birds' feet have the same look. The first type of bird that you see is a duck, and you see that around here a lot. And ducks have special feet that are webbed, and the webbed feet help them to be excellent swimmers and help them paddle fast in the water, which is helpful because that's where a lot of their food is. So if you pull this down, it says ducks have webbed feet to help them swim through the water. They feed in the water, so it is extremely important that they can move easily. And if you're kind of unsure of what webbed feet is like, picture yourself wearing flippers. The next type of bird has very different feet than the duck, and that's an eagle. And their feet are not webbed. That would be a little silly. But their feet are very sharp, and they have talons. And when you're thinking of what a talon is, think of like a sharp nail. And the talons are used to help catch prey and capture prey and kill prey. Okay, so they swoop down and they use their talons to kill and capture their prey. And then lastly is another type of leg. The herons and the storks have long legs that help them walk through shallow water, and their long legs and feet allow them to grip the sandy bottom so that they don't fall. So even though all these birds have different type of feet and legs, they're each suitable for their own environment and their own habitat. The next thing we're going to look at is birds' beaks, and as I said before, each bird has a special type of beak and a special shape and a special design. This first beak is a curved beak, and usually the curved beaks are for meat eaters or carnivores because they're using their beak to tear up the food that they catch. And when you think of animals that have the curved beak, owls and hawks and eagles are examples of birds that have this type of beak. The next beak is a little different than the first beak because it's very long and slender, and this is helpful because it helps this bird drink nectar from flowers, and often you'll see this type of beak in hummingbirds. And the long slender beak acts like a straw so it can sip up the nectar. The third picture shows a super-shaped beak and a spear-shaped beak rather, and these birds use their spear-shaped beak to capture and kill their prey. And when you think of a spear, it's like very sharp at the end. It's a type of weapon. Well, they use this sharp spear to first kill their prey and then take it away and eat it. And lastly, the last type of beak are the short stubby beak. And these birds typically use this type of beak for grinding small seeds and nuts. And when you're thinking of the type of bird that has a short stubby beak that uses it for grinding, usually sparrows and finches are common birds with this type of beak. So as you can see, these are just 4 different types of beaks, but they're used for different purposes and different reasons, all which allow these birds adapt and survive in their environment. And the last thing we're going to focus on is eyesight. Remember in the beginning I talked about how certain birds have very, very good eyesight, and you'll often hear an expression maybe your parents say, "She was giving me the eagle eye." Well, it's an expression used because eagles have very good eyesight. Eagles are able to see their prey from over hundreds of feet away, and also owls have very, very good eyesight, so it's very helpful for them to see, allowing them to capture their prey. We also talked about how certain animals have feathers that help keep them dry. Ducks have oily feathers that help keep them dry when they're in the water. Penguins are another type of animal that have feathers that, or a type of bird that have feathers that keep them warm and dry. And then lastly, we talked about how birds have very light and hollow bones, and they're designed for flight. So now that we've reviewed some adaptations of birds, I want you to try to apply what you learned about adaptations to the exercise below. And what you're going to do is you're going to read the clues at the bottom, and if it's a clue that describes an adaptation that an animal you would use to protect itself, you're going to put it in the left-hand box. If it's a clue that describes how an animal would help get food, you're going to put it in the right-hand box. Keep in mind that an adaptation is a behavior or appearance that helps an animal survive in its environment. Good luck!